but I think we'll start. I would like to welcome everybody. Welcome to our live conversation, Climate as a Design Challenge. For the next 60 minutes, we will be speaking about how cities specifically are challenged by climate change, but also how they contribute to emitting carbon emissions and what planners and architects are currently being trained to do to face these challenges in their professional life. And before we start with our discussion and before I start to introduce the panel, we would like to hear a few words from our organizers today. And I would like to welcome Ben Brisch, who's the director of DWIH New York. That is the German Center for Research and Innovation. Ben.
Thank you, Benjamin. Hello, everybody. My name is Benedikt Brisch. I'm the director of the German Center for Research and Innovation, or the DWIH, here in New York. And it's my pleasure and honor to welcome you here on behalf of our center, because today's virtual web talk is hosted by the DWIH together with our valued partners, the Campus OWL, as a regional association of innovative German universities and universities of applied science, together with their partner, Columbia University Graduate School of Architecture. And I'd like to welcome and thank the participating distinguished experts and panelists. Our center, the DWIH, was founded on the initiative of the German Federal Foreign Office, which is currently promoting 5 such centers around the world in Sao Paulo, New Delhi, Moscow, Tokyo, and here in New York. The goal of our center is to bring together scientists and innovators from Germany and the US in order to solve questions of the future on a global level. Today's topic, climate as a design challenge, is surely such a question. This is also in line with our focus topic of the year, which is cities and climate. So today's web talk is one of a continuing series at our center. I'm excited to hear more today about the latest ideas of researchers and innovators, how they plan to tackle climate change and when they design the cities of the future. So thank you all for tuning in. I wish you an exciting web talk. And with this, I hand over to the organizing partners.
Thanks, Ben. Next up is Kaja Simons for Campus OWL. She's the executive director of Campus OWL's office in New York City.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Campus OWL New York. We are a New York-based liaison office and a network of 5 universities in OWL. OWL, that stands for a region in Germany, Ostwestfalen-Lippe, in North Rhine-Westphalia, in Germany, and which is one of the strongest economic regions across Europe. Together, the universities strive to promote talent and create innovation. And here in the US and Canada, we build networks and foster partnerships and focus on core research areas such as working world of the future. And today's topic ties well into this focus as we are looking at game-changing ideas and design solutions for cities to tackle climate issues. Let me briefly name the 5 universities in our network. That's Bielefeld University, Paderborn University, Bielefeld University of Applied Sciences, OWL University of Applied Sciences and Arts, and Detmold University of Music. And today we are happy to partner with the Detmold School of Architecture at the OWL University of Applied Sciences and Arts. And I'd like to especially thank Sandra Bomholt and Professor Kathrin Volk for the initiative and the idea for this event today. And before I hand over to Jasmin Pamuk from the German Consulate, let me thank the DWIH New York and all of you who are part of this web talk today. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Katja. And next up, Jasmin Pamuk. She is the head of the Cultural Affairs and Science Department of the Consulate General, the German Consulate General here in New York City. Jasmin. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Yes, you can hear me now? Oh, yes. Yes. A very warm welcome to everybody. And before I start my little speech, don't be surprised if I vanish now in a few seconds. I will be back after the speech. I have to tackle some internet and connection issues today. So I hope you can hear me now.
Perfectly.
Good. Thank you. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you today to today's live web talk, Climate as a Design Challenge, hosted by the German Center for Research and Innovation. and Campus OWL, in collaboration with the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation at Columbia University. We are faced with a growing set of global challenges. Climate change is perhaps the most exemplary illustration of the issues at stake. Certainly, it has ceased to be an abstract notion, and the impacts related to climate change are evident across regions and in many sectors. More extreme waves of heat, drought and wildfires, declining water supplies, reduced agricultural yields, frequent flooding and erosion in coastal areas are just some examples of the increasingly disruptive and costly impacts on our cities. At the same time, cities are a key contributor to climate change, as urban activities are major sources of greenhouse gas emissions. The UN Environment Programme, UNEP, estimates, for instance, suggest that cities are responsible for 75% of global CO2 carbon emissions, with transport and buildings being among the largest contributors. With estimates that 68% of the world's population will live in urban areas by 2050, the need to design cities equipped to cope with the climate challenges becomes evident more than ever before. This requires a deep understanding of not only the problems at stake, but also to generate ideas about possible solutions and actions. One such action is to foster and promote the role of the science community, not only in researching and analyzing the problem, but in counseling us, that is governments, in developing more effective solutions and formulating better policies. The Consulate General New York feels privileged to have strong partners in this endeavor. Institutions like the German Academic Exchange Service, the German Center for Research and Innovation, as well as our excellent university liaison offices, such as today's co-host, the Campus OWL, headed by Dr. Kaja Simons, not only represent and provide access to Germany's excellent science and research community, but also seek to deepen transatlantic exchange and collaboration across disciplines and borders, as well as to bring scientific insight to national, regional, and global policy debates. In our view, this is science diplomacy at its best. Today's live web talk, Climate as a Design Challenge, is one of many excellent activities in this regard. The panel of outstanding researchers and practitioners that you will hear today will explore bold and innovative design solutions to create urban spaces that meet the requirements of sustainable climate resilience. But going beyond that analytical approach, today's exchange will also touch upon the needs of the city's residents and a broad-based effort to grow and deepen public support in building such sustainable future cities. Germany prides itself of some of the world's most livable cities. The challenge to tackle the impacts of climate change, however, requires international effort and action across sectors and at all levels. Germany therefore thinks it's essential to make the discourse on future cities an integral part of our transatlantic science diplomacy efforts. Last year, we celebrated the German-American Year of Friendship, Wunderbar Together, with a great number of events evolving around this essential topic of imagining and building the city of tomorrow. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of participating in the German Center for Research and Innovation's Future Forum 2020 on building Biopolis, the future green city. I am delighted that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, our partners in the science and research community continue their efforts to lead these important discussions on both sides of the Atlantic. Our hope is that this exchange allows us to develop a better response to global challenges and add value to both more inclusive and more comprehensive discussions, as well as to better policy decisions. It is now my pleasure to hand over to Benjamin Berger, who will moderate this panel of excellent and outstanding experts from Germany and the United States. I very much look forward to the discussions.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you for these words, and also to Kaja and Ben for organizing this discussion today. Now, let me introduce today's panel. I'm really glad that we get to hear from a range of perspectives from different universities, from professional life, and from both sides of the Atlantic. So we have Kathrin Volk with us, professor of landscape architecture and design at Detmold School of Architecture and Interior, OWL University of Applied Sciences and Arts. She's the chair of landscape architecture and design and vice dean for research and internationalization. Kathrin Volk is a founding member of the Urban Lab, the research group for urban studies at Detmold School, and she's currently leading the Horizon 2020 research project Urbinat, which focuses on the regeneration and integration of deprived social housing districts. Kathrin is joined by Marc Rieser. He's a former student at OWL University of Applied Sciences and Arts, and today he's part of MUST Urbanism, a Cologne and Amsterdam-based office which mainly focuses on the interface between climate and the city. So he's going to be really working at our topic today. Kaja Kühl, welcome. She's an adjunct associate professor at Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, that's GSAP, where she coordinates the Hudson Valley Initiative. She's the founder of You Are the City, a people-centered design and research practice in New York, and a co-founder of Design for 6 Feet, an initiative to amplify creative voices in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Kaja is joined by Einat Lubliner, former student of Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture and currently an urban designer at Bjarke Ingels Group. Einat volunteers also as a part of an advocacy group with the community and with transportation alternatives for a more connected and safer Eastern Queens Greenway here in New York City. Thank you all for being here and joining us today. Before we start, I would just like to let everybody know how to participate in this discussion. First, we're gonna tackle 2 big topics. The first thing is we're gonna look at how cities are actually impacted by the climate change, how they are affected. And second, we will go into what can be done to make cities more efficient in terms of carbon emissions. Afterwards, we will go into how teaching at universities has changed to actually tackle these issues around climate change and to create solutions for the future. We have a few presentations of Einat and Marc, and then we would like to hear from you. We would like you to ask questions, which you can also do throughout the course of our discussion. You can use the Q&A tool for that. And we also have a small chat function there on the lower right of your screen. And we might post some links there for you to check out later. If you post your question in the Q&A function, please be concise, and then we will just read it and let the panel answer it towards the end of our discussion. But you can do that anytime during our conversation. So yeah, let's get right into it. But maybe first, one thing that is kind of the elephant in the room and that we're all dealing with right now. Yes, there is a global climate crisis, but currently we're also in the midst of a global pandemic, which influences our daily lives and influences teaching and work at universities. Just briefly, I'd like to hear from all of you, very briefly, please. How is your work currently, or also at your campuses and professional life, how is that impacted by COVID-19, by the situation, and how is it in Detmold and how is it in New York City? Kathrin, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to join. So yes, how are we affected in starting our semester this year as an online semester? We are doing most of our lectures remote, which is very sad because our students usually have a very lively campus situation. We do a lot of practices, we have a lot of workshops, we are sculpturing, and at this year now we have to welcome them more or less online. We don't get to know them and they cannot get in touch with us. So we hope very, very soon this will be over and we can get in touch with the students again.
Marc, you're working in Germany. Briefly, how are you working from at home? How's the situation?
Yeah, for me, I'm working in home office, I think, since March, and everything is going digital and online. Every meeting is online, and at some points it's pretty good. Not every talk has to be in person, but at some point in the creating and designing process, it's better to see everyone in person, and I hope this will be better in the near future.
Kaja, how's the situation in New York at Columbia's beautiful campus?
Similar to what Kathrin described, however, we have a system called hybrid teaching. So the studio classes meet in person once a week, try to meet in person once a week, with masks on, 6 feet apart, and strictly regulated how many people can be in one room. That said, we have about half of our students currently not in New York because they weren't able to get visas or they just didn't feel it's safe to come to the US right now. So a lot of what Kathrin described, we also see that any kind of social interaction between students is missing or only happens on the screen. And a lot of, and we'll talk about this later, a lot of what we do and how we teach involves meeting with community members and really getting sort of information on the ground. And that is severely limited right now.
That definitely is a big impact. Einat, how's work for you?
So it's definitely challenging, but as graduated in class of 2020, I think we kind of got some tools to kind of understand how to design remotely or how to kind of do group projects remotely. So I think it's working, but of course the personal element is missing.
I think we're all missing this, but on the other hand, it gives us a chance to connect us so easily via digital platforms. Now, let's start speaking about climate change. This conversation is called Climate as a Design Challenge, but we know it's more than just a design challenge. But we want to look at planned and built urban environment and how they can be improved, made more livable, but also made more efficient. All of you work as architects, as planners, researchers, educators, and we'd really like to hear from you. So we already heard from Yasemin that cities are responsible for a huge part, about 70% of carbon emissions, but they are also very vulnerable at the same time. So let's maybe start with the latter. What are the challenges for our cities today and in the near future caused directly or indirectly by global warming? Let's start with Kathrin.
Yeah, so I think we all experience it, so that especially in summer, the cities are getting very hot and very warm, and even in the night, they cannot calm down or cool down because of all the reflections from the asphalt and the warm streets and the facades. So this is one part. At the same time, we have more and more hard rain events, which means suddenly a lot of water is coming into the city, and it's not a flooding from the sea, or it's just really just there, and we have to deal and tackle with all the water then to make sure that not everything, all the streets, parking structures, all the structures are flooded. So this is one aspect, really what we experience. The other thing is that also, of course, the whole environment is changing. So the soil is more and more dry and drafting, and we don't have the possibility. Also, the plants are suffering a lot, which means we have to adjust the whole situation, all the parks, all the gardens, to slowly adjust to this strange situation. And this is only a part of the effect that we really can feel or can already see. So all this behind all this is a kind of very complex system of interconnections between, for us as a human habitat we are living in. And though this is very complex and it's very difficult sometimes to really know which thing we have to change to get a complex, good new effect. So this is maybe the main or the easiest things to explain what's happening in the cities just as we experience it now.
And Kaja, are today's planners and architects prepared to face these challenges?
Yes and no. I think we're getting more and more prepared, and I think we need to sort of understand our priorities and relearn. This is really something that is a collaboration that happened. I think New York, for instance, had to rapidly learn how to address storms and sea level rise. In 2012, with Hurricane Sandy, New York has 520 miles of waterfront and about, an estimated 500,000 people could be affected by a similar storm in the future. And what we've seen is that infrastructure, it's not just people's homes that are underwater, it's really also infrastructure that is not up to the task right now. And so it's a collaborative and collective learning process in how to reinforce infrastructure, how to redesign it, and really not only make it withstand storms or flooding or other effects of climate change, but also make it serve the residents of cities better than it does currently.
So when you're teaching, when you're working with students, how do you include these new challenges? Is this something that is just kind of done in particular seminars, or has it become something that is just a sort of a cross thematic challenge?
Yeah, I guess we really try to address it in all our classes, more or less, and it's getting over more and more. Basically, it's quite interesting for me. I'm trained as a landscape architect, and as a landscape architect, you get to know this from the very first seminar you do, that it's a very complex system we have to deal with and we have to tackle. And now slowly the architects, I really say architects now because I mean the architects, are also understanding how necessary it is to think in a kind of circular system and to understand that it's not about only making, sorry to say it like this, a nice facade or something, but also that it has to contribute the building to the city in any way. And this is something that's also taking over now, and I think it's more and more visible in the buildings we are doing, but it's definitely part of our education now.
And with the Hudson Valley Initiative, Kaja, you're actually also leaving the city, going into the surroundings. Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's part of our program. I teach in the urban design program at Columbia University, and I think we share a lot of the sort of sentiments that landscape architects have, that you really have to understand systems and think in larger systems, and also the interconnectedness of ecological systems, social systems, physical hard infrastructure like roads or public transportation or housing. And as part of our program, we try to introduce a variety of scales. The students start with learning about New York City, and then in the second semester, we look at a region. And the region includes a lot of small cities. Actually, I think it's more than 60% of Americans live in small cities. And that's, we talk about the urbanization of the world, and that's certainly true, but that urbanization does not only include the mega cities of millions of people, it also includes sort of small urban areas. And so one focus that we have in our program is to see what urban design looks like in these smaller, lower density areas, where some of the issues we face with respect to global warming, the things that cause emission, are even more exacerbated, especially transportation.
Mm-hmm. Can all of you give us some examples of how, like, this is sort of especially concerning emissions, how planning and architecture today already has changes or has solutions for becoming more or emitting less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? Marc, I think, or Marc and Einat, you're working in architectural offices. Are there, in like your everyday life, what are examples for creating more efficient cities and built environments?
I think that generally, as Kaja said before, it's a lot about the systems of the city and how we can reimagine them with kind of less carbon emission. If, for example, we can take the transportation system. So first of all, create spaces that are more pedestrian friendly, so people don't need to take cars for work, but they can just go to work. Also improve bike lane systems so people could bike to work, and then also an idea like the ride share. So this is something that it's a kind of private entity, but the idea of like how you reduce basically the presence of car in cities. So these kind of, and of course, public transportation, that is the most important. So I think these are aspects that's super important now to kind of improve those systems.
Yeah, I think this is the one big topic you can really feel right now. It's the mobility topic, which is like improving everywhere in the cities, like in the big cities. And there you can feel like what is improved, like you talked about the pedestrians and the bicycle lanes and everything. And of course, this is like the priority right now because everybody wants this topic to be included in their projects. And yeah, I think this comes to synergies with other topics from ecological use, and also to developments of whole neighborhoods. Yeah, this is the topic I think where you can feel it the most.
Mm. When we first talked, Kathrin and Kaja, both of you said that you have you're following a really like a human-centered approach towards planning and architecture. Tell us a little bit more about that in connection with climate change, because in the end, I guess when it comes to mobility, for example, it really needs to be human-centered, so people see that it's useful, can use it, and save emissions through using, for example, public transport. Kathrin, what does that mean in this case, human-centered approach?
A human-centered approach, classically it's a kind of idea that comes from the design, from the classical design, product design. And what it means for cities or for urban environments, I guess, is that of course we have to focus on the needs of the inhabitants, and to develop a design which is actually helping them and supporting them and not hurting them in a way. And we were talking about the transportation system, and yes, I agree, we have maybe to change the system from a kind of car mobility more to a bicycle mobility or to walkability. But I think it's more, it's not about, these are kind of technical solutions we can do as an infrastructure thing. But a human-centered design and contribution to climate change is also to be aware of, or make people aware, where does food come from? So how could we eat? How is our way of eating impacting the climate, for instance? How is our way of living impacting the climate? So it's a big issue, and I don't want to say you shouldn't do anything more or anything else now than you are doing, because otherwise you also can say don't do anything anymore. But I think it's really kind of making people able to create, co-create, and also to be an active part of the urban development, and not only a kind of passive person who suffers urban development. Maybe something like that.
Can you give us examples for that, of like an urban place, maybe a city where that has been done really well or really efficient?
It's not actually one. I think one of these approaches, it's also already done in New York. I think Jan Gehl is one of the architects who is doing this in a very intense way. So he's always focusing on the people's needs. And he has a very nice saying. He says, first life, then space, then buildings. The other way around never works. So he's addressing very much how people are living in the city. And he made a nice project in New York. I think in the 1990s it started. Late 90s, and he is the one who basically starts the change from Times Square to a big crossing intersection to a kind of very nice livable place now and a walkable place now. And he's had a lot of other projects like Melbourne, for instance, and also the whole Copenhagen thing. So we say now to Copenhagenize a city, which means to make it walkable, to focus on the bicycle, to make it kind of nice and cozy. So this is maybe one of the classical examples. So if you would like to get an impression, you should travel to Copenhagen.
Kaja, do you have examples for really well-working solutions, just to give us an idea of what's being done nowadays?
I want to kind of tie into this a little more. So if you look at transportation or traffic as an emissions problem, the engineering solution would be that we all have to switch to electric vehicles, and that the energy created comes from renewable sources. And that is an engineering solution that doesn't do a lot to create communal spaces the way Kathrin just described it. And so I think what we're trying to do in our program and what designers like Jan Geel do is to sort of look for synergies or co-benefits between solutions where, whereas if you're able to reduce car traffic to begin with, you create a better environment for all. Electric vehicles could still have traffic accidents. Pedestrians have that much less so. And then to sort of think about this human-centered or human aspect of this approach. So Times Square was the first plaza in New York that was created where the city itself almost started a tactical urbanism project, not investing in the complete renovation of the space right away. But, the first summer, the city installed camping chairs to see how it's being used and then adapt and then initiate a longer improvement process. And this is now a process that is replicated throughout the entire city and is initiated by communities themselves. They approach the Department of Transportation and suggest areas for conversion into pedestrian spaces, taking road space away from cars, and then go through a similar process of first sort of an improvised improvement and then a longer term improvement to really create urban spaces. I think the same is true for buildings, though. We all talk about energy efficiency as a primary goal, but to look for the co-benefits in these buildings and not just upgrade the energy systems, but really create spaces that are better spaces to inhabit as workspaces or as housing is really at the center as the goal for what designers are striving for.
And in many ways, the past month, the COVID pandemic has also accelerated these processes of turning parking into restaurant spaces. And especially in the summer, we saw a lot of outdoor space just being used, also bike lanes being installed rapidly, whereas that would have taken much longer before. But we want to look a little bit into teaching and how you bring these topics into the curriculum and the everyday teaching at your respective universities. Kaja, you've brought a short video from last fall, and we just want to let the images run for about 2 minutes or so, and help us understand a little bit your approach there and what students can expect in Columbia at GCEP.
Yeah, I thought it would be nice to give you an impression of what studying architecture and urban design at Columbia looked like a year ago when we were all still in person in the university spaces itself. And we took that semester, we took the Green New Deal document that was just released a few months earlier as sort of a design brief for our urban design studio, and asked students to turn a policy document into actual projects. And as we mentioned earlier, we asked them to explore the Hudson Valley and the cities in the Hudson Valley. You'll see some images of that. We traveled to the region. We spoke to a lot of people there. And the entire process was embedded in a larger university-wide project where up to 10 classes took this document of the Green New Deal as a starting point for envisioning what a transition to a carbon neutral world and a just transition that creates green jobs and allows for new livable environments and low carbon jobs is a term that we often use. And so a variety of different classes explored that. We also went to a larger conference called the Designing a Green New Deal. So it's been a big topic, and this upcoming spring, we will take this topic framework again to explore as part of a national initiative now among design schools to just develop concrete ideas for specific places of how this idea of becoming carbon neutral in a just way can really be implemented or can be envisioned across the country. Students were sort of, one last thing I want to say is that the students are very international. And so this was sort of an introduction to American politics for many students. And then for the first time, sort of diving into thinking about a policy document as guiding their design.
Yeah, and it was it was just published, so it was a very fast reaction onto this also broadly discussed paper and also broadly criticized. Very interesting. Kathrin, the Detmold School of Architecture is particularly, or is particular in a way that you do connect planning architecture, also interior architecture. Do students come together and do similar projects in the search for solutions towards climate change?
Yes and no. So I think where everything get together or can bring together are our research labs, which are also contributing to teaching and also doing a lot of research. So we have a construction lab, a perception lab, and the urban lab at the moment. And next place, which is dealing with data and bringing. So slowly we changed to say we have this different perception lab and different topics. We bring them together more and more because we've learned now that if we would like to go for a kind of human-centered city, we need the knowledge of the perception lab. So, and if they would like to go a little bit more into this climate adaptive housing, they need the knowledge of the urban planners. And so we introduce or start topics which we also then discuss with the students and ask the students, give them briefs to work on it. We do it in student competitions, for instance. We also do it in seminars, and we like it very much to bring the students together in interdisciplinary teams, like in summer schools as well, where they have to discuss this with all the different perspectives. So it's a multidisciplinary approach. We really like to foster it this way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to look into a little bit more into how teaching actually works and some student projects, we asked Marc and Einat to prepare short presentations just to give us a better idea of what they actually, how their approach towards solutions as part of the programs at Detmold and Columbia University worked. We'll start with you, Marc, and I think you can share your screen and just give us a bit of an insight into your project.
Yeah, I hope you can see my screen now.
Works well.
Perfect. So I switch it to full screen, and to put a whole master thesis within 5 minutes was a little bit hard, but I hope you get at least the message. So this project is about the Europan. It is an international competition for young architects and planners, like the name says, all over Europe. And it's about one topic. Last time it was about the topic productive city. And it has about 40 locations all over Europe. And I chose the Bergner Corporation, which consists of a region with 4 small towns, which want to strengthen their future development. And so I had to find one concept which fits to the region, but also to the 4 different locations. And for this, I separated this concept in 3 scales: the region, the districts, and the community. And for the region, the region will face major regional and global challenges like megatrends and something like this in the near future. And in order to meet these challenges, the region has to prepare itself early on. And with the help of this common strategy I created, the Bergner Corporation can use these challenges as a potential for the long-term development. And the aim is to establish and address as the productive region in Germany. And for the district, I have to adapt this strategy to the spatial design. And for this, I had to look at what is productivity. And here, that's the easiest definition of productivity. It's the output divided by the input. So what have I to invest to get the best out of it? And so I adapted this definition to the productive city. And now there was the question, what is the output and what is the input? For the output, I said that it's a livable, healthy, sustainable, inclusive, and also economical, efficient city. And the most important now is what is the inputs. So the what we planners could do and our tools we use. And for this, I create this 4 clusters of tools. And there you have space, life, ecology, and mobility. And the cluster space is about the built environment, different types of space, scales, and also the management of the space. The cluster life is about a productive and efficient use of any space through a wide offer of activities that can coexist, from essential activities to the social or even random activities. The cluster ecology is about the synergies between users and their environment. The focus here is on the cycles of the different resources, like from water management to food production and so on. The last cluster, mobility, is about the access to all these new qualities. As we mentioned, away from a car-orientated mobility to multimodal mobility with flexible alternatives that include every user barrier-free and demand-orientated. So this is a very short abstract of the general concept. And in the next step, I had to adapt this general concept to the 4 different locations with their own identity and own issues. And for this, I had to find the right scaling of every cluster and for every location. So here's a little insight to the different implementations and the different locations. These are just some impressions to show what every cluster could look like for each location. Like Wülfrath is a really rural, small town, and Solingen is like a post-industrial city with a lot of nice-looking architecture. So they are completely different issues and identity. And then in the last step, there are also the processes within the new districts. First, there's the daily life system, which is based on linking the different interfaces of users and residents in the neighborhood. And due to the diverse demands on these interfaces by the users, these offer a lot of possibilities. And last, the metabolism system, which deals with the different layers of the resource cycles within the neighborhoods. And here the aim is to create as many synergies as possible between the individual layers in order to close these loops and achieve the lowest consumption of the resources. So, in the end, you can say here productivity is not a material output or something like this. It's about working development through the linking and the synergies between the different clusters and processes. Yeah,
that really, thanks. Yeah, that really gives an impression about the layers and the level of complexity and different sort of tools that can be used to make cities more efficient, but also resilient, especially, life, ecology, mobility, all can be improved through good planning solutions. I'd like to hand over to Einat now to present her a short project that also results out of her work at Columbia GSAP, right?
Yes, sure. Oh, not this one, sorry. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So this was a project as part of a team with Chris Dang, Hatem Kaplan, and Sushmita Shekhar, and it was part of the fall semester studio with all these professors that helped us to kind of develop this project. We were looking at the transition in this project between traditional shopping to e-commerce and how this transition actually affected the public space and the streets, and how we can maybe reimagine a new system of retail that could basically create more kind of fair economy and more jobs and create more sustainable retail system. So we started looking at the kind of transition from the main street that we all know that was like, the heart of the city with the kind of like market space, and then through the moving to shopping malls, and then to basically online shopping. But this is mostly what we kind of like all of us kind of consume our products now. And then we look in kind of more zoom out scale to US map and saw that 350 million of megastores are going to be closed. And basically in the red dots, you can see new distribution center of Amazon and Walmart are basically taking over new lands with new buildings. And then we zoomed in more to the Hudson Valley area, and we saw that 25% of the shopping malls are in danger of closing and the streets is dying. And we also tried to look at the employment rates in these towns, because those towns were very kind of based on these industries or these shopping malls or places for jobs. And we saw how it affected that quite largely. And then we also looked at the kind of difference or shifting between the idea of like product-based retail to more kind of service-based and experiential economy. And then we kind of set up the main challenges for our project. The first one was the redundant infrastructure of the shopping mall, big boxes, retail store that we need to deal with, the job loss, the monopolies that are taking over, the lack of social interaction in the street, and then the carbon emission. And we also went to the conference and set up like kind of the conference and set up kind of goals from the resolution of the Green Deal, how we can reduce carbon footprint, create more fair economy, better job opportunities, deal with this reuse this redundant infrastructure, and work collaboratively to increase the efficiency. So in the Hudson Valley in Kingston, we're speaking with different businesses, owners, and try to understand their challenges. So part of them were kind of the last mile delivery, others talk about like difficulties with kind of lack of government support, or even about the traffic, that like the streets are not active as before, so they don't get the traffic anymore to get basically people buying. And then we ask ourselves how we can reimagine the retail system in the Green New Deal era. So we kind of came up with this holistic system of sustainable retail that divided to kind of 3 scales. The small scale, which we're focused in this project, was the Main Street, to create this kind of sustainable collaborative Main Street. And then these 2 different scales of the M and L were the shopping malls and the big boxes, to kind of be the back of the house, the back of the city, to help with kind of recycling, shifting waste to energy, a distribution center for the Main Street, warehouses, to kind of work as a one holistic system. So from individual retail store, we shifted to kind of collaborative retail. Why collaborative? Because it's reduced the space. If the businesses could share space, it's reduced the footprint. If they also can share infrastructure as shipping or electricity, it also could help. The idea of the lower cost and collaboration of the different businesses and how it can benefit each other. And then the last thing is the social aspect, the interaction of people with the businesses, increase awareness and experience and activation of the street. So we look at a section of the street, and instead of having 6 kind of lanes of traffic, we try to kind of reimagine more kind of pedestrian-friendly street. Then we have this kind of strip of 30 feet that are devoted to basically experiential retail. And here we can see the different clusters of the kind of retail, the co-ops of the retail. And the idea was to kind of increase the collaborative consumption and local economy, and also revive the streets. So the streets were composed from different components. Part of it was shared spaces, as kind of training spaces or maker space, shared energy and waste infrastructure for all the business together, public outdoor spaces, and then street extensions. So if we zoom in into the street extensions, this is like an axis of this kind of model. And here are the street extensions. So the idea of the street extensions were kind of like, it's like the market space of Facebook. So different businesses could put their, in those boxes that you can see them here, remains of like clothes or products, or even, the residents and the people can participate in that and put like secondhand stores. Or the idea is like to increase kind of collaborative consumption, increase basically awareness of consumption, and then make basically the kind of connection between the businesses and the people. So you can see here different kind of typologies. So supposed to be kind of not just boxes to kind of store, but also kind of fun places to sit, to play. They could also kind of used as kind of solar panel for the energy system and so on. So these are just a couple of images for how it looks like. This is kind of the place of the extension of the street. The idea of like having kind of recycle park with do-it-yourself, that you can take, those materials from the boxes and create your own thing without any need to buy something. and then kind of workshop the idea of like engaging the people, the community with the small businesses to teach themselves and also to kind of work together. So if I can just conclude, so we try to create this kind of like more sustainable retail system, but at the same time, we try to put an effort and kind of like focus on also the social infrastructure to understand how we can basically create more kind of active streets, consider this situation, and then yeah, also fair economy and more jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Einat. That really explains a bit more about the human-centered and also participatory approach. And before I'll hand over to Kaja and Kathrin again to just react to these two presentations, I'd like to encourage everybody to post their questions into the Q&A. We'll attend them right after this. But yeah, Kathrin, Kaja, what's can you contextualize and put this in the bigger picture for us?
Yeah, let's try. It's quite interesting for me. I think Einat and Marc, it's perfect how you did it today, because you showed it's not about thinking a kind of product, it's thinking about a process. So, and the process is quite interesting. All of you divide the process into LMS. So you had different scales you approached. So you didn't know each other before the project, and also the projects are quite different, but at the same time you see or can see that it's not about one topic only. It's about a process that is thought through different scales. So it's a kind of, how to say, kind of spatial knowledge they are creating that they can use in all the different scales that contribute to a kind of, yeah, sustainable environment, as far as I understood. And it's not only about sustainability, it's also about reinventing things, reusing things, restructuring things. So use the existing and yeah, make it more efficient and put it together to something new, which is maybe very nice for a kind of new spatial development. Kaja, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's true. The similarity about the multi-scalar approach is really striking. And I also think that if you listen to the title Climate as a Design Challenge, I'm not sure what we all would have thought about what that is, or what the audience thought that what is. But both projects sort of show, I think, an approach that we all share, that it isn't sort of one design aspect that will reduce emissions, that will adapt our world to warmer temperatures. It is a holistic sort of rethinking of our urban environments and the ways in which we behave in them. And I think that these disciplines of urban design and landscape are sort of perfect to do this, because we have a way of looking at multiple systems at the same time and connecting human and social desires for how to live in cities with economic necessities, and also with at least enough knowledge of engineering and infrastructure of what pieces of the physical environment we can actually play with.
Thank you. Yeah, there's not one big solution. And with that, I'd like to have a look at the audience questions. And we're not going to be able to answer all of them, but I'd like to pose this one or give this one to you, and whoever would like, take it, please. This question is interesting by Larissa Karlsmeyer. If an entire urban community is built on unsustainable premises, like high dependency on cars, let's look at Los Angeles, for example, how much does individual climate awareness actually matter? What chances do city inhabitants have to act, to live climate efficiently?
Actually, Larissa, thank you for the question, but actually I think you are the one who is deciding. And of course, I think it matters if you change your way of living, if you would like to go more by foot or would like to use your bike more often, and if you join other people to do it, then it is your decision. And it's not about waiting until somebody else will give you the big picture from above, like a kind of new planning idea, but it's just also very much about the behavior of the individual, and you can decide about your contribution to climate change or not.
I would agree with that. I would also say, though, that I think we as designers do have the ambition to be able to influence more than just one individual, because that's sort of the role that we play in urban projects. And so but we need that constant feedback with individuals, with communities, to understand what is possible to shift, to understand what kinds of shift people support or would want in order to more comprehensively transform urban environments. So for instance, a place like Los Angeles is densifying dramatically, which of course already begins to sort of cut down on transportation emissions because more people live in the same amount of surface.
We have another question by Vikas Sharma asking how spatial planning affects climate responsive design. How do the two correspond? Anybody want to take this one?
Yeah, we can try. I think if we are thinking about a sustainable city, it is climate responsive. So we are discussing a lot about not only resilient cities, but also anti-fragile cities, which means that the system is also learning. After it was hit, it's getting better. So, and this is something we are really doing. And all the ideas about nature-based solutions, for instance, which means understand the urban, the natural systems and implement them and integrate them into the urban system, like Marc showed with this urban metabolism. So, and of course, this is actually very much responding to the climate situation, because the whole system Marc showed, which water and sun and the people who are producing things and the heat that's going out is reused for something else. It's really a kind of understanding cities or urban environments as metabolism, which changes the whole idea and the whole view on the situation. It's not like the productivity to say, put something in, you get something out. It's really reuse the things that are getting put out again. So I think we have to learn this kind of metabolic or also ecological approach in a way.
I would like to know from Einat and Marc, because you just started your professional careers and also working as volunteers in the field. Is this knowledge about climate responses and the participatory approach, was that actually a big factor either for you in choosing the offices you work in, but also in professional offices? Do they appreciate that? Do they actually look for students who come with that knowledge from universities?
Definitely, yes. I would say that I feel that if in the past, a lot of like firms were kind of focused on like the drivers for a project or design were a lot of like, maybe shape and like, circulation and context. And I think it's still now happening, but the kind of idea of climate change and sustainability, it's something that really kind of presents now. And I feel definitely I chose the firm according to that. And I feel in every project, there is a driver that relates to, or different ecosystem to combine with the urban environment, or, community and also idea of like, renewable energy. So it's definitely something that very helpful to be, to learn it in university, because it gives us actually a tool to kind of design for that.
Marc, this holistic approach, how does it matter in your office?
Yeah, it's very important for us. In our office, we combine these two aspects of design and also climate adaptation to show what is possible. And here in Germany, after the last election, where the Green Party was like, I think on the second place, you can see a new way of thinking and a new priorities for every client and every project. And so, yes, of course, my office appreciate this knowledge because of our clients. And yeah. Okay,
thank you. No, that hopefully, like we did manage to, and an hour was much too short to get into all of these solution and innovative approaches that you do have. But I hope with this we did sort of circle the issue and professional projects. I hope you can still hear me. Yes. At this point, it's 1 p.m. here in New York City, and I would like to come to an end by thanking all of you and thanking our organizers, Campus OWL office here, and the DWIH in New York City, German Center for Research and Innovation, as well as all of our speakers today. Thank you so much for your time and for your great work and for sharing. So with this, I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving week, and hopefully see you all again.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.